morning, friends. This morning I'm warping up my loom. This is an Ashford rigid Heddle loom. The Heddle is this piece right here, and you can see it's rigid. It has hard plastic pieces in here with slots between and a little eye here. Okay. I haven't woven anything in a while, and so if I'm a little muddled in my terminology and things like that, please forgive me. I have this mounted on a dresser, and I have a yardstick right here that's holding up this end, so it's a little precarious, but this is the best warping up situation I have found because that dresser holds that end of the loom really rigid. It's the bar. Let me show you. This back bar here, down here, maybe you can see this in, is back behind the dresser drawer, and so that holds it in place. And I'll show you the other end. This is to keep the tension of the weave from pulling everything. So the other end of the room I have in front of this window. I don't know if you can see it. I've got a dowel right here that is stuck and something down there, and this piece of furniture is actually keeping this dowel from pulling forward, and the dresser is keeping the loom from pulling forward, so the pressure of the weave is not going to, of the warping up, is not going to move anything. Okay, so that's the situation I use. I'm going to start by warping up a long enough piece to make 2 baby blankets. I've shown y'all my yarns before. This is Simply Soft or its equivalent. This is Soft Secret, and this is Simply Soft. These are the 3 colors I'm going to use. The warp will be in these 2 colors, primarily the turquoise. And then hopefully this is enough for the weft. I hope so. If it's not, I'm going to have to go back and get some more. I kind of have my doubts. I might use some of the turquoise in the weft too, because I think there'll be plenty of it. It's just a larger skein. Okay, so without further ado, we'll get going. Now I'm going to warp up the entire loom from end to end to make these blankets as wide as possible. As you see, I've tied on my turquoise all the way over here on this end, and then I'm going to use this little device, use the big end at this point, and you slide it through the slot and pull it through. I like this arrangement too because I can keep my yarn back there and it feeds out of this. You always want to feed from the middle, never from the outside, and it feeds real easily. And we will see if this dowel situation works well. You have to go around that back stick, and this is where you get some of your tension from. This is going to start to pull, and you go in the next slot and grab it. Okay, you see how I have gone around the back stick again? Okay, and you pull it down, put it around the dowel. Now it's coming out. It's kind of already around it. I go through the 3rd slot. Pull it through. Make sure y'all are zoomed in close enough to be able to see that. The heddle is almost in the way. By the time we get to the middle, you'll be able to see it a lot better. I'm going to put a nice band of turquoise on the outside. I think I'll move the camera a bit so you can see on the back side of that heddle, okay? Okay, if you hear some voices in the background, that's just my family. They're in the other room. Okay, so, and I want you to watch carefully the alternating way that this works, okay? So at this point, the yarn is already underneath the back stick, and so when I when I put my little tool through, I grab it that way and pull it through. Now, you see how it's just kind of floating loose, and I have to actually put it underneath the back stick in order to grab it. Let me show you that again. Okay. So this is what you're going to see is that alternating as I go down, the yarn is going to either be, before I grab it with my tool, it's either going to be lying underneath the back stick or lying on top of it. So here it's real easy to loop it up like this. Now as you go, you're kind of creating your tension. I'm going to just give this a tug because you're going to want, this is where you want your tension to be, here. Okay. And so you kind of want to, you don't want these outside ones to be loose. Okay. You want, most of all, you want your tension to be consistent as you go through. You don't want the middle of it to be tight and the edges to be loose. Okay. Now see how now it's just lying on top and I have to grab it underneath. Okay. Now at this point, it's going to be a nice wide blanket. It's probably going to be almost a square blanket by the time we get done. Let me do a little bit more of this. I might do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I might do 10 slots before I change color. I very rarely use the whole loom. I usually will weave on a little bit in the middle. If it's a narrow scarf or just anything, I hardly ever go all the way to the edge like this. But the blanket, is bigger. Okay. I hope that putting the camera back there is helpful to you. Let's see, how many do I have now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, well, we'll stop there. Okay, now, always keep a pair of scissors handy for tying off your yarn. Now at this point, once I tie this on, I really can't adjust the tension on this anymore. So, you kind of want to, if you want to do any adjusting, like I feel like that outside one is a bit loose. Okay, so I'm going to cut this off and tie this off. Okay, let me bring you back around and show you the front of the heddle. Now because of the alternating nature we were talking about up there, you see how the first pass through a slot is kind of raised and the second one is lowered down there. Okay, so it's up, down, up, down, up, down. It makes it easier to count it. I actually ended up with 11, which is fine. I can do whatever I like. I just have to make sure I leave 11 passes through the slot on the other end of the blanket as well. I'm really using the turquoise as my main warp, and the other blue, solid blue, is just kind of to give a little contrast. Okay, I could even use a white or any other color, but I kind of want to stay in the blue family. Okay, let's back up a little bit and you can see what that looks like. Okay, let's keep on going. I'm going to switch to the other blue for just a bit. Okay, I've tied on my other blue, and I'm going to start in the very next slot. I should also mention that as I put tension on that dowel down there, the yarn that I'm looping around it tends to ride up the dowel. So you have to keep an eye on that, so you really don't ever want it to come popping off the top of the dowel. I don't want much of this color. Like I said, it's just to kind of offset the turquoise. So I may only use it about 4 times, maybe 5 times, depending on what I want it to look like in the whole blanket. That's 4 passes of that, which I think is enough. So I'll cut that off. Make sure you hold it and cut it so you don't lose your tension. And try to maintain your tension as you are tying it. Kind of test it. Okay, so now we'll go back to the turquoise, and I'll probably speed up this part of the video because it'll take forever, and then you can just watch the progress. Okay. Now I've been using my turquoise for a while and looking at my skein thinking it's looking kind of floppy. Am I going to have enough? Because I'm not even halfway through. I've got a lot of Heddle to go. See that? So I've been wondering, do I have enough? And one way to figure this out is to look at your yarn wrapper. And this particular skein of yarn was new, and it's got 170 grams is its weight. So if I wonder, am I about halfway through with how much turquoise yarn I need, I can take out a digital scale, put my remaining yarn on there. I discover I have 54 grams left. Okay, that means I do not have enough to fill this up. That means I've already used up, out of 170, I've used up well over 100. And so I really need to either think about getting another skein of this yarn, or really adding some of the blue or something else in there to help extend my warp and make it longer. So I've got to start pondering that, because I don't have enough of this to last. So, but this is a really useful thing to do with a digital scale, to find out how much you have left. If you know how much you start with, then you'll know how much you have left at different points in your yarn project, just by weight. All right, so I'm thinking probably this would be a good time to add some more of the blue. I know that the color doesn't look very interesting right now, but that's because we haven't added the variegated yarn. In any weave, the weft is going to dominate, and it's going to cover up your warp, unless you have some really strong stripes in here. It would actually be good to put a little bit of black in here. That would be a great idea, because black is a wonderful contrast yarn. But the way that you can get around that is by using a weft that's variegated, and it kind of blends everything together. It doesn't dominate, but it adds lots of interest, and it also makes the actual weaving so easy, because you never have to stop and tie off or try to thread in your yarns. Okay, so I am going to do a little bit of this first. Okay, and I'll get back to you when I've decided what pattern I want to use going forward. Now it's quite clear that I'm not going to have enough of this this turquoise yarn. Obviously, if I've used up over 100 grams on this turquoise here, there's no way that 55 grams is going to make it, even if I make the blanket shorter, if this black stripe here is the center of the blanket, if I'm making a symmetrical blanket, which I think I do want to do. I don't think I want to do anything too crazy for my grandbabies. I really like, I almost wish I'd put a black stripe over there, because I like how that looks. But I'm going to continue with this turquoise. I have to get this yarn at a store in town, and it may be a while before I can get more, but I'm not in a hurry. That's the nice thing about creative projects, is you don't have to be in a hurry about them. This is why they say that weaving is such a good way to use up your yarn stash, because when you are running yarn from there all the way down there, you can use up a big skein of yarn so fast. And I had kind of forgotten, so I probably should have gotten two, but I really didn't know. So when I get this all warped up, we will continue the video. Okay, so this is where I am right now. And I have decided that I am not going to be able to go back to town and get more of that turquoise, because I can go for weeks, even sometimes months, without going to town, which is 30 minutes away to get to this store. And I can't leave this warp up in my studio, because it keeps me from doing anything else in my studio. So I'm going to end up just making a non-symmetrical blanket, which I think will be fine. So I'm utilizing, this is going to be my big band of turquoise, and I'm utilizing more of the black and the baby blue as I go down this way. I'm saving a little bit of the turquoise over there for the very end, so I can have a bit of a matching band on this side. But I'm going to fill in with a nice wide band of baby blue, and maybe one more little band of black, and then the turquoise. It won't be as wide as the whole Heddle, I'm sorry to say. That's how much Heddle I have left. Let me move over here and you can see a bit more how much I've done. But the thing is, if you want to know how wide your piece is going to be, don't look up at the Heddle where the yarns are spread out. You really have to look here at this, I guess that's the back stick, or maybe that's the front stick, since that's where you sit. And look at that. That's about how wide the blanket's going to be at this point. And I really want it to be a bit wider. I'd like it to be more like, you know, this. So I've got a ways to go. And but I think it'll be okay. I'm really hoping that putting in this variegation into that is going to make it look really cool. Okay, so this is the blanket so far as I've warped it up. The measurement from that stick up there, the very end of the yarn there, to the end of the yarn at the dowel is 92 inches. Since I want to try to make two blankets out of this, one at this part of the warp and one at the other end, that gives me 46 inches total, But I need to leave a gap between the two, and I need to leave enough room for some tassels, not long tassels, because these are for babies and you don't want long tassels. So I'm imagining I'm going to get probably about 40 inches per blanket, which I think is fine. My problem is that while I'm weaving along, of course, I'm going to be weaving this end first, okay? And as I'm going along, I need to know when to stop so I don't encroach into the next blanket. So I'm going to measure off 40 inches. Let me see if I leave, what did I say, 46, say 3 inches for each one. Anyway, I'm going to measure off, and I'm going to do a little tie on the edge. Not anything too big. I need to make sure it'll pass through the slot and not mess anything up. And when I get to that point, then I'll know that I need to stop. And if you wonder what I'm going to put in between the two blankets so that I can have something solid to beat against, I've been saving, this works, I've been saving these toilet paper rolls. And when I finish the first blanket, I'm going to roll this around the, going to put this in and at the end here, and then I'm going to beat against this. And we will see how that works. I've done this before. I don't remember exactly how I did it. I may go back and check my blog and see if I can find out. So this is where we are now. Now I'm going to get my husband to help me roll this up. Okay, my handy dandy helper is here, and he looks like he's got a team of horses, but he's actually helping me roll up my warp. And I've got these little strips here that came with my loom that I'll be adding in if I have a spot for them. See if I can find a spot for them up here. So, can you see this here? See, here's my gear that I'm going to use.
Is my middle all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to different hands. It makes a difference.
Then we need to, split like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Keep those sides. Okay, so I'm going to be cranking this up, and he's going to give me some good tension on there as I go, and I need to make sure that I don't drop it. Now this bar right here is going to lay against the back stick, and then I'm going to be putting these in. Do I usually do it this way? I think so.
Yeah.
It's been so long since I've woven anything. I feel like I usually lay it in. Okay. And what these little straps do, they're cardboard. They just soften the effect of that back stick on the yarn, so it doesn't damage it. Give me good tension. Get one on this side. Right there. You really just want a smooth roll. It's softening the roll that you're doing. Almost got that too tight into that dresser. There we go. I need to weave more often, and I wouldn't forget what I'm doing.
Those are floppier than these.
I know.
These little fiberglass ones that stay stiff.
Yeah. I had more of these, and a lot of them tore in half, so I used them for narrower weaves. I'm losing a lot of these into that dresser. But you really just want to have one covering every part of that back stick around, so you don't have to just keep on doing them until they're gone. That one fell down. Yep, I'm keeping that nice and tight.
Trying.
Looks like you got some that are flopping down over there. There's one right there. Can you get those?
You need 4 hands.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, once you get those straps in, then it's so much easier. You don't have to stop. There's also a brake on this gear, as you see here, and you just want to make sure you keep that handy. Let me get that yarn in there. So that if you happen to let go of it, it's not going to go unwinding on you. Because this is when you're putting your tension on your yarn as it goes into your back stick, and that's just really important. We got some loosey ones there. This is a really big warp. We got
Wait.
some.
You just dropped that one for the nouns.
I don't know why they behave in such strange ways, but they do. By the time you get done, some of them are so much longer than others, and that doesn't make any sense to me either. It's more than you would expect, just because some of them are at a slight angle when you're warping it up.
Now, if you're telling them stuff that you want them to know, keeping these as short, you want to come in with it. It helps keep the tension more even than having these be long. Just in case you don't know that, because you don't do that.
Sometimes you want a long, like this time I have to have a long.
What I'm saying is when you're tensioning it, you want this end
not
short.
standing way back there. You want to stand close to the heddle. Okay.
I don't know if you noticed that I come in when we do this.
Yeah, I think it does help. And then you can keep an eye on this part, and you can see when any of them get loose. going to look okay. In my imagination, I knew what it was going to look like. And I think that the variegated weft is going to make a big difference. Whoop, you got something going on?
Got a lot going on.
Okay, we're getting close to being done. I'm not going to have very long tassels on these. Okay, I think that's about it. I think that's about right. Yeah. Is that right? Is that where I usually stop? Because some of them are pretty short.
A lot of them are very short.
Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you. Okie dokie. Okay, now that Adam has dropped the warp down and I've got this the gear over there locked, I wanted you to see how different the end lengths are. Some of these in the middle are quite long, and some of these blue ones are very short. Okay, and I don't know if that's probably a reflection of my warping and the tension I put on it, but that's how it turns out, and we try to keep as consistent a tension when we're rolling it up as we can. Now I'm going to take this out of the dresser. Well, actually, while it's still up here and I can stand, I'm going to thread every other piece of yarn through an eye. Okay, so I'm going to try to get you as close as possible so you can watch me do this. Now this is going to be another rather tedious and repetitive thing, so I won't keep you doing it indefinitely. See, look how long this one is. But each one of these plastic strips in the Heddle has a little eye, and you're going to separate these two strands. These two strands used to be, on this end, looped around that dowel. Of course, I cut all of those. That's an important step. And you're going to take the one that's closest to the eye, and you're going to use this little tool here. You reach through, and you try to keep the other one down so it doesn't get in the way. And you pull this one through. So now you've got one in the slot that can go up and down, and you have one in the eye that's stationary. So let's do that again. You don't have to drape them over the edge there. I just think it keeps them out of the way. I try to hold them like the reins of a horse almost, and move them up and down to see it back here, which one is closer, which one is on this right-hand side, so that I put it through the eye. Okay. So again, one is down at the bottom of the slot, and one is through the eye. And I'll pause and get you closer so you can see that. I know this zoom isn't great. Okay, so I've done those first three. Notice how I didn't use this eye because that would require me to have had a pass of yarn on that side of it. I guess I could have gone to the left, I just never do. And so this first one of the strands stays in the slot and one comes through the eye. And I'm going to do that all the way down. Okay, so I'll show you when I'm done. Okay, so I have threaded all of these warp strings through the eyelets, the eyes. And I wanted to show you the difference in length. I think the shortest one, if you can see it, yeah, the shortest ones are perhaps in here. Probably this clump here. And some of these long ones are way down here. So you see what a difference in length we have. But you really have to go by the shortest one. I wanted to get 2 blankets out of this. And I have 92 inches in length. And so I've got 46 inches total to work with each blanket. If I have 3 inches of fringe and stuff like that on each end, that gives me a 40-inch length in a blanket. So I need to look at my shortest one here. It's about right there, because everything else is going to have to be cut to this length, okay, of the shortest one. And if I measure up, I can get to about here. This is about 20 inches up. This is about 20 inches up. And I want to put some type of an indicator so that when I have woven and woven and woven, and this spot is down here, I can measure again, and then I'll know when I'm at 40. Okay, so I need to keep measuring, because once this warp starts disappearing on this stick back here, I won't really know. The difficulty with tying anything to your yarn is that it's going to have to pass through these eyes. Okay, and they're very small. The slots are a bit bigger, so I'll probably pick a slot. But I'm just going to take a little bit of thread because it's so thin, and I'm going to tie it onto one of my yarns as a little flag to remind me. Okay, make sure that it's long enough and tie a little bow. I think I'll put it on this end. So I want to pick this one and tie it tight enough that it won't slip around. It has to stay in place because it is a marker. And then of course later I can snip it out of there. It won't stay. Okay, it's kind of big, but I think it'll be okay. We'll see how that works. So I'm going to start, now that I've got these here, I'm going to start knotting these up. I have to attach this end of my warp to this back stick here, okay, and to really keep that tension going. And let me show you, hope you can see, yeah, you can see, okay. I'm going to take about 6, okay, that's 6 eyelet strings and 6 on the bottom. And what I do, actually, let me look at these. Let me see how close these are to the back stick. I've actually got more room. I can actually do this a little bit further. Okay. Okay. So I tend to take about 6 at a time, and I just tie a knot. See, those black ones are really short too. They're really short. Once I get the knot all the way around. And I want them enough above this, yeah, that I'm going to be attaching them later. And you want these knots to stay fairly level going across. You can make a little bit of exception for them, but not a lot. Okay, there's another 6. And before I pull the knot tight, I like to hold this one up and try to work this one down so they'll be comparable. See? Now they're not absolutely perfect, but they're pretty close. There's another 6. Okay. All right, and I'll flip you back on when I have all this knotted up. All right, so I'm done with the knotting up, and they're pretty even going along there. And it may seem strange to you to have worked so hard to keep so much tension on your yarn as you're warping it up and as you're winding it up with assistance from someone. You're keeping it so tight, then to just drop it and let it loose. It makes it look like it's so loose. However, you're going to regain all that tension when you attach it to the back stick again, and you have preserved the tension on this back stick here. So the tension really is still there and will be preserved. And that's important to remember. Now I've got this piece of cotton twine. Okay, it's nice and long. I hope it's long enough for this one. I'm not really sure. And so here's this stick. Now these all have official names. I don't remember what this is called. There's one here, and of course there's the one on the other end that you start with. And actually I'm going to use this as a single because this is such a wide warp. I think I may need it to be this way. I haven't done this in a very long time because I just haven't done a warp that is this wide and so long. But I really haven't done a blanket or anything like a blanket in a very long time. Okay, hopefully that'll be enough. Whew. All right, so you take this and hope you can see, there's this, they call this a shed. It's the in between. You open up that knot and you see that, and you pass this through. I've doubled this over this cotton twine so that it loops around the stick. Then it goes through there. See how it keeps it nice and taut? Okay. And then I'm going to pass it around this back stick. And it's got all this tail. That's all right though. Depending on how close your knot is to this back stick, that'll determine how much of the string you need. If you have to go up and down, you're going to need a lot. And I'm going to need to go a bit on this one. Often I will get my knots really close to the stick, but I didn't do that this time. And I don't know that there's any one is better than the other. I think this, oh sorry, just is what it is. This is another place where you want to keep your tension. You want to keep, boy, some yarns are stretchier than others. You just never know. I really thought these were all, that the Simply Soft and whatever the other brand was, that they were pretty comparable, but they're actually rather different in how they behave. The old Simply Soft yarn has more of a cotton feel, and this new stuff from Hobby Lobby, and I forget its name now again, it has more of a slick acrylic feel. It's soft, it's not scratchy, but it just doesn't feel quite the same. And I'm going to continue to really hold on to this twine and tighten this binding down here as I go along. Okay, well I've gotten all the tension pulled on here. Now you can see how these turquoise yarns are farther to the bottom, and that's because this yarn is stretchier, okay? And I wonder if that means that as I weave, it's not going to retain its tension as well because it's going to be kind of more flexible in the warp. You can look and see that the blue stuff is really, it has no, doesn't matter where it's placed on the warp. The blue is taller. This one's quite tall because it has no green in it. Okay, no turquoise. Anyway, it's very interesting. Now I'm going to go back, and this is really like kind of tightening your shoelaces. And if this were a narrower warp, I'd be able to kind of use this hand over here to help, but I can't until I get a little bit closer to it. As I get a little closer, I can do this. And you see, I really have plenty of the string. This tightening, I think, is important. Really, all it does is restore the tension from here to there, but it's still important. Okay. Kind of hold it with one finger while you go on and get the next one. Okay. And then I'm going to knot this off on the end so it'll be very secure. And I like to knot it several times. And there you have it. Now, the next thing you have to do is now I've got some big gaps in here, and that's going to be a difficulty. The next thing you have to do is establish a nice level beginning line. And I'm going to take some of this scrap yarn and put it in some of these lower spots. Like the difference between here and here is rather significant. And so I am going to kind of fold this several times. I used to sometimes use toilet paper to do this, but I think that that was not a great idea. And I think I'll extend it this way a bit because a lot of these are quite a bit lower. Now, you may think this looks horrible, but this none of this yarn is not going to stay in there, obviously. And I'm going to get this one on the end a bit. This is just a temporary measure so that the beginning of my weave will be nice and level. Okay, leveler. Don't really need much there. This is a little bulkier yarn. I'll put it in here. Okay. And then it looks like I need a big wad of it in here. This is simply because I am very much, in case you can't tell, I am very much an amateur. And because I don't weave very often, I make a lot of mistakes, have a lot of flaws in my weaving. And so if I were an expert weaver, I wouldn't end up with this inconsistency. I wouldn't be using yarn that is not consistent with itself. And I would have, done a better job of buying all new yarn that was all the same brand and all that kind of thing. But I didn't do that. Which probably just means I'm weaving like a lot of you guys are. With what I have, I used to have a huge yarn stash, and I had tons of Simply Soft yarn. I mean, literally, I had maybe not dozens, but certainly about 20 skeins, and so I always had plenty of Simply Soft if I needed it. And then slowly I started using it up. Well, there's another spot. Maybe I will do this. I'm going to need more scrap yarn for this. I've never needed more in a previous week, but this one is just so wide. I'm using it all on just this first run. Or not all of it, but most of it. Okay. Now, in order to kind of get it set, you pull it down, you beat it a bit. See, look how I've kneaded that filler here. Didn't really need anything here or much there or there, but everything else needed some. Okay, now I'm going to put it down in the bottom shed. Okay, so I had it in the top shed. Now after beating it, I'm moving it to the bottom shed. And because I did that filling in before, I won't have to do it again. I think I'll just do that many. Okay. Now this is going to have to be pushed down. You have to really get it. This is kind of the foundation of your weave, and so you have to really push it down. Later, all this extra yarn down here and the stuff I'm using here of the good yarn will all be part of the fringe. Okay. But for right now, it is being manipulated to form a foundation for our weave. I can really feel the difference in the yarns. I can feel the laxness in this, and I can feel the tighter. Or just there's a springiness in that yarn that the black and the baby blue doesn't have. Okay, so now we're going to beat that down. put it back into the up shed. This will probably not be enough. I could probably do a single pass through. I don't know why that wouldn't be. Now I know this seems slow and tedious. All of this is preparation for the actual weaving. And I prefer, personally, to do lots of preparation and then have an easy weave that doesn't require too much work. That's generally my preference. I wonder if I should put this one too somewhere. Okay, I did find one more piece of scrap yarn, this dark blue that I put in there, and I think that'll be a good enough base to begin. Okay, and so now I'm very eager to get started and see what it looks like. I've got this very, very long stick to use. I know it's got, I'm calling everything a stick because I don't remember its name. I guess that's a shuttle, but I'm going to load it full of this yarn. Now I really do have a great fear that I don't have enough weft yarn, and there will be nothing for it but to go back to the store and get another skein, which is just fine because this is a gorgeous yarn, and of course this is for the grandbabies, so anything for the grandbabies. But we'll see. I might be able to make it work. Well, I've got maybe 8 rows done here. It's important to watch your edges. I am not very pleased with the tension here. This is really loose. I'm hoping to tighten that up as I crank this back stick here down and as I move the edges down. But I'm liking the look at it. You see it's got some bright green showing up. Can you see in the work down here, if I put this here, you can kind of just see what it's going to look like here. That all this turquoise, the turquoise is gorgeous, but the variegated just blends right in with it. They're very, very close. This baby blue looks almost more gray or silver, and it shows a stripe, but the black really stands out, and that's why a black stripe can be really useful in a weave. I kind of wish I had done one earlier, but it didn't occur to me until I was already over here. That's a lack of planning on my part. Some people love to really plan their creative projects, and there is great value in that. I really enjoy the spontaneous kind of innovative creativity where you do it as you go. And I know that may just sound like laziness, but that's really what I love, because to me, that's what creativity is. It's not this meticulous planning ahead. That's not really what I enjoy. I enjoy the evolution of a project as you go through it. And so, and I'm pleased with that. It doesn't bother me any. You can also see if I had more, actually, this blue right here, that is some Simply Soft. It was just some scrap yarn I had. I don't have any more of it. That would have been a really lovely contrast. That's kind of what I was hoping I had, but I must have used it all sometime. That would have been a lovely contrast. But, you know, the black is going to look good too. If you just look at this part, see how nice the contrast is with this variegation coming in, the different colors. So I think it's going to look good. It's time to crank it down and get all of this junk down here hidden in the back stick. And then I'll bring you back in and we'll do some more weaving. You can see what it's going to look like. All right. All right. Now that I've cranked, maybe you can see way down here at the bottom, I have cranked that foundation, the scrap yarn down here, just right up to and almost on top of this back stick. And the actual weave is about to go onto the back stick here soon. And I want to protect the weave from all the bumpiness of the knots and the wood and everything as much as I can, just like I did with those slats, the cardboard slats at the top. I need something here. And so I'm going to be putting in this paper. I'm going to tuck it underneath the weave and wedge it up underneath. It's so cumbersome. It's such a wide weave. And tuck it underneath here And then as I roll this, it will roll up into the back six. Like that, okay? And it'll buffer this weave. But I'm going to keep on going with this until I'm ready to do that. And then I'll show you when I've rolled this on. Okay, I think now you can begin to get a feel for how the blanket's going to look like. It's very blue. I love that blue. It's actually, I don't know if it's showing up. It's really more turquoise than this. I want to make a note about the edges. They always say to try not to crimp your edges and pull those edge strings in. I always end up doing that, but what it gives me is this like almost like a border. And I think maybe in a blanket, especially a blanket that a child may handle for years, that can be really useful because it'll make it a little tougher. Over here, here's my string. I knotted it again and trimmed it because now that it's on this side of the heddle's going to go over it and over it and over it. And I didn't want it to shift at all, so I want it to be shorter. When I've woven and moved this down, and that string is down to here, I'm going to measure another 20 inches and put another string up there. And that'll be my 40-inch mark, okay? And that will really help me in knowing when to stop. So this is the blanket so far. I think I'm pleased. I hope my daughter and my daughter-in-law are pleased. I like this part. It looks very babyish, but I don't think that looks unbabyish either. Boy, you really almost can't even see. See, there's the baby blue and there's the turquoise, but that really blends in together. And I do like the stripe, the bold stripe. All right. At this point, I will bring you back into the weave when I get to the middle between the two blankets, and we'll see how that goes. Well, that was forever long, was it not? And I've only just started the weaving. So I'll be doing this video, this weave, in several different videos. And we'll stop here with this one. Hopefully it'll go faster. As you can see, I make a lot of mistakes in my weaving. And I hope this doesn't make it harder for you. I hope it's still helpful and beneficial to you. I'm still pondering whether I want to give this to my little baby grandsons, and tempted to turn it into some kind of a shawl or something and start over for them. But we'll see what my daughter and my daughter-in-law think of it. And if they like the blankets, then we'll go ahead and proceed. Thanks for joining me, and we'll continue next time. Bye-bye.